Hello, everybody. We started today a little bit differently. That was Bill Boetticher, Alumni Army Navy Academy, class of 1962. Today I'm honored to be here with his brother, Bob Boetticher, class of 1965. It was a great day today. Bill started us off in our chapel talk by bringing us into the room. The boys loved it. And then Bob was gracious enough to speak to the boys. We're going to talk a little bit about that now. It was fabulous today. So today, again, I'm here with Bob Boetticher, class of 1962. Bob's also a trustee at our institution. He's served on our board now for a few years. An integral part. He's been very, very helpful. As he said to the boys today, he enjoys very much paying back to the institution. That he explained to the boys today how much he enjoyed it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we're going to start with Bob. Bob, first and foremost, thank you for doing this. Thanks for being with the boys today. They clearly loved it. And let's start with this. You today had a chance to talk to the boys. You started with why the chapel to you was such a seminal part of our campus, this focal point in the institution. Let's go through that again. I thought it was beautiful. You started with pointing out a specific point, one of the seats in the chapel, and then talked about the flags. I'm going to let you go right through it.
Well, when I was a cadet and we used to come to chapel, it really wasn't anything spectacular. We would be there. Colonel Atkinson would talk to us, and then we would go back out. But then I would go back periodically and just sit in there and just start to really look around. So when you asked me to speak today, well, what am I going to talk about? And I immediately zeroed in on the chapel of how that it was really special. And for a fundraiser back then, my parents had a chance to buy your part of the pew.
Right.
And then your name was there. So Bill's name was on it. So Bill sat there for his 4 years. I sat there for my 3 years. And so then I thought, well, why don't I show them where we sat and do something with it? So I knew the history of the challenge coin,
right,
which dated back to World War I. And I had also explained that the pilot had gotten rid of his uniform, his ID. He had nothing but a medallion. And I thought I could tie these two together.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So that's why that I had said, and it took a little bit for them. I didn't realize it was so dark back then.
Yeah. It was hard to see the names.
I should have put a red sticker on it.
Exactly.
And but to give them that challenge coin is that is their ID, because they'll always belong to the academy, and then the values of the academy, plus all of the cadets are their brother. Right.
You gave him an academy challenge coin, which is beautiful. Caden Jansen, who is a sophomore here, was the person that was sitting there, and he came up and received it. That was fantastic. It was a great way for you to start to talk about the next thing you brought up, which was you asked the boys, hey, what do you see when you walk in the room? Mm-hmm. And you can't look at a picture of the chapel without seeing this array of flags that are there.
Correct. And at the time when I was a cadet, I knew what all the flags were, but it didn't quite hit me until now is when I really started to think about it, and being in the funeral business and planning so many funerals, that I was thinking of another way so that they will focus in on those flags. So when they come in, I want them to look up. Each one of those flags represents at least 50 people. Right. Each one has a different story.
Right.
Each one was a cadet, plus they're your brothers. So when a cadet comes in now, he's with his brothers. Above him are his brothers.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Even though that they never met any of them, except my brother and I. They're still, everybody up there are brothers. And that there's a lot of memories up there.
Yeah, I was really glad you did that, because no one's ever brought we always talk about a long gray line, and of course all the alumni that come through talk about the extension of your family that comes through this long brotherhood. But what you did today by forcing them to look up and look at those names, it became very, very real, right? It's not just, oh, there was 50 guys in that class, 70 guys in that. It's their names, and I can read every one of them, and they have their own story, just like
Yes,
I will.
absolutely.
I thought that was powerful today, and I think they received it. It was really, really good.
Yeah, and Jack White is going to come and speak. And Jack is class of 63. And he was a battalion commander when I was just a sophomore.
Right,
He didn't know me.
right.
He knew the last name. But I always looked up to him because he was bigger than life.
Yeah.
You know, when
Yeah.
you'd walk in. 60 years have gone by. And I would see Jack when I would come back periodically. Again, not good friends. Jack
Right.
White, hello, Bob,
Yeah,
as far as it went. But then when I became on the board of trustees, I still had that huge respect for
yeah.
Jack. And even now, I'm so honored. And I always try to sit next to him. And I just talked to him the other day. So now we have formed a relationship. But
Yeah.
for 60 years, he and I were brothers.
Right.
He didn't know me, but we were brothers.
Yeah, which
And
is
that's
beautiful.
what I...
Yeah, and the boys they're getting a sense of that. That's really such an important part of the talks that we have, because so many of the people that come through are alumni, and that's purposeful because the alumni, as I say to the boys every time, that the times have changed, but the experience is very, very similar,
It's still there.
and it's good for them to understand that.
Right.
It's hard to understand, but it's so important that they get it because it does ground them, right? That they're
Absolutely.
a part of something bigger than just themselves.
A lot bigger. And they will realize once that they graduate of how big it really
that's
is.
really right. It starts to hit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Listen, you had mentioned something a minute ago, and I want to segue to it because I really saw the boys' eyes pop a little bit as you explained the depth of your career. But you started by telling them that it started here, right? That
Sure did.
you would have never known about the career that you'll start to tell us about had it not been for the fact that someone here said, hey, you should take some interest here. Why not look into it?
Right. Right. I never thought about being a funeral director in 1,000 years. What I was kind of looking at is that my uncle was a movie director. And I kind of wanted, hey, maybe I want to do that. And I talked with him. And anyway, he explained it to me and how unions work and,
Right.
and all that. But when my class advisor, Henry Hampton, said, you should look into that. And on his own, he set up this meeting.
Right.
And then when I couldn't get a job, and then I finally did, and then where I am today, it all started here. If it wasn't for Henry Hampton and the Academy.
Right. So you explained today that that the Academy really dug in with you. You had
Absolutely.
You had some learning disabilities
Absolutely.
that nowadays are discussed on a regular basis. We have examinations, and there's all sorts of assistance that goes into that. But in 1960, that was simply not the case, right?
They didn't talk about learning disabilities. I didn't talk about it because I was embarrassed
Right.
about it.
Right.
And did I want to be up with the rest of my class? You're darn right I did.
Yeah.
And when I hit that dean's list, oh my gosh, I won the lottery. But most of the time, I
Right.
was in the middle. And for me to really learn here, I'm a visual person. They had to switch of how that they taught me
Yeah.
through visuals. And then once that I saw it, and then my brain started to process it, then I just moved on.
brilliant.
But if the school hadn't taken an interest in that, I would have walked out of every class only knowing about 25%.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have graduated.
It's brilliant. So you're not only you're not left behind, but you're given the ability and strategies and techniques that help you learn. You understand you're a visual learner. Many boys are.
Yep.
So that's not rare at all. And you start understanding, okay, when I do go out into college, my profession, whatever it might be, I'm going to take in information differently, and I have to be prepared for that.
Right.
Yeah, and the school helped with that, which is, I think, what you think about it, back in this, your brother's here in the 50s and you're here in 1960. That's rare, but it was, but in a smaller environment like this, we can do a little bit more of that. They have you take an aptitude test.
Correct.
And you said today that you came up as a test pilot,
And real estate
a real estate agent.
and then a funeral director. How they came up with that, because of the questions were, what's your favorite color?
Right.
Do you like fat people, skinny people? I mean, just things that had absolutely nothing to
beautiful.
do with it. So I didn't pay much attention until Henry called me in, and still I didn't pay much attention.
Right.
And but what's kind of funny, when he took me down to this local funeral home, a friend of mine that I've known for years in the funeral business, Jim Price is his name. So Jim and I started talking one day at some meetings, and he mentioned Carlsbad. And I said, "Did you used to live in Carlsbad?" And he goes, "Yeah." He said, "My dad owned the funeral home."
They're amazing.
I said, "In what year?" He said, 65, 60. I said, "I think I talked to your dad."
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
I mean, it all comes around.
Yeah. Now your career, there's obviously a lot of different ways to be in that business, but you were at a very different level in that business.
I was.
I'd like you to expound a little bit on some of the professional things you've done, because they're incredible.
Well, I went to mortuary school, of course, and then my wife and I, and then our family, we moved to Jackson, Wyoming. And the owner of the funeral home also had a hardware store. So we had a mortuary phone in the hardware store. And then if somebody died, I would walk a block down the street, stay at the funeral home, and then come back. And then one day he says, I want to sell. And so we were able to buy the funeral home and then the flower shop. And then I ran for coroner, the county coroner of Grand Teton National Park in Yellowstone. And I won.
Yeah.
So that kind of started me in going. And then I used to work for Service Corporation International, SCI. All of their funeral homes now are under the name of Dignity. So they brought me down to Houston. And still I was I was in the field a lot. And it wasn't until I got a call from the Reagan family. And they said the military district of Washington in Washington, D.C. had told me to call you. So I didn't know anything about a state funeral. And so then we worked for quite some time with the military, because our country hadn't seen a state funeral in over 30 years.
Yeah.
So nobody was around that had ever done one. And so then we did Ronald Reagan's funeral. And then right after that, the Gerald Ford family had contacted us. And so then we waited on the Ford family, then the same thing with the George Bush family, and then with
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
So we were very lucky at the time, being in the right place, knowing the right people. And now we are the experts
Right.
In those types of funerals.
Right. And you said, you told the boys, you've done 4 presidents, 5 first ladies.
Correct.
Heads of state,
Mm-hmm.
military dignitaries. It's a pretty
Movie people.
a lot of people that people would know. Right.
If I would ever give you the list of our clients, you probably know 95%
Right.
of them.
And you mentioned something too. Not to me personally, you mentioned it in one of our conversations, that your business, you're at such a pinnacle of that industry that you're actually involved in these levels of planning for some 40 or so families prior. This is something you do long before someone passes.
Some of our clients who are very high profile,
Yeah.
we worked with them 12 years,
Yeah.
because every movement that you see on TV, it's on a piece of paper.
Right.
So some of our plans are 400 pages long.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is, but it's all of the movement. So when you watch a state funeral on TV, the military have their movements, the funeral
Right.
directors have their movements. So everybody has to be in a certain place, and if they aren't, then we start to run into some problems. But that's where the planning takes. You can write anything down in a plan, but when we go out and actually walk through it,
Yeah.
will it work?
Right.
And that is one of the biggest challenges, but that's what we are good at. We have a team of 30 funeral directors, the best of the best, and they live in different parts of the U.S. So within 12 hours, we can get that team moving if we need to. And each one is kind of a specialist in doing different things, and it has worked out extremely well.
Yeah.
Plus, I guess it's my walk on the moon.
Right.
Nice. I'm so proud of what I do, and I have different moments, just like anybody else. All of a sudden, where it starts to get you right here.
Yeah.
Because, especially on a former president, their families are just like yours, just like mine, and they grieve the exact same way.
Right.
And sometimes you just look at them, going, "Wow, they need help."
Right.
But they're very strong because they allow the public to see them on TV.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so you really have to give the first ladies so much credit because that they're really having a struggle because they just lost their husband. But then the rest of the family, it was their father, their grandfather.
Yeah. Right.
And we have one shot to get it right. So when I talked about responsibility today,
Yes.
you own it. So if it goes good, you own it.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, you own it.
Yeah.
So that's what I had learned here.
And what you said to the boys too is, look, there's some very simple lessons that you could be left with. And you learn them here.
Yeah.
I'll let you expound on them, but you said, very first one, which was very near and dear to our heart, they're going to think that we set you up for this, but we didn't because we say it so often. And it's just show up on time.
That's it. That is so important in all of life. If you're going to a business meeting and you're late, what kind of impression?
Exactly.
And I imagine a lot of good business deals went south because that the person was late, in coming. But as I had told them, if you're early, you're on time.
Yeah.
If you're late, if you're on time, that you're late.
That's right. And it's we try to drum that into them from an everyday perspective because, we say this here a lot. We're an academy. And if you look at our mission statement, forge virtuous young men for life, you'll notice in there, it doesn't specifically call out education, right? Education's a piece of it, clearly, right? But we're talking about life skills at this academy, right? It's more than education. It's the things that set you apart, that make somebody trust you, right? These are hard things, but the very first one is that they know that you show up on time.
That's
right?
it.
We say this so often. I would say to the boys, I can give you the absolute secret of success, bar none. I guarantee it's right. I'll take any bet, right? Show up on time, do the work. It's just simple, right?
90% of it is showing up. The other 10% is up to you.
Yeah, it's just execute, do the work. And in your line of work, like you said, the precision of it, there's no do-over. There's no second take.
Nope.
This is where you as a director could have said, let's do this 17 times. But here we get it. We need to get it right once.
Right.
And those people who are grieving, that's the memory for the rest of their life. So what you do is so valuable, so important, because it was the meaning behind it.
When we plan a big service, it's all timed.
Right.
And we work with the news media, so at a certain time, we have to pass in the motorcade a certain point. You better be on time.
Yeah.
Because it's live TV, and people are sitting there waiting going, where are these guys?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great lesson for them because it it's difficult to abstract those kinds of things into various fields, right? You think, oh my gosh, nobody has a real strong sense of the idea of funeral directing and what that takes. But then it becomes very real as you explain it and the necessity to be on time and to get things done within a certain framework and to be responsible for that. It's just, you could almost see that I never would have thought of that. Right? I never thought of that. And that's why it's so valuable, because it really does give you a chance to have those aha moments.
Absolutely.
And say, look, now I'm starting to get it. That there's this various times and places in your life where these guys aren't kidding when they say you got to get the habit of showing up on time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really think that was very helpful to them, that they really took a lot from that.
Well, I wanted to give them something. One is an experience of what happened to me is when I was here, which was good. I mean, it was all good. So how do I share that with them? I had struggles. I wanted to talk about it so they just wouldn't think that I'm standing up there throwing a bunch of hot air at them and also what I didn't really talk about, but is when I was here, I stuttered.
Yeah.
And I still do. And, so I had the learning disability, plus I stuttered. And did I have a whole bunch of respect for myself,
Right.
So no, I didn't.
Yeah.
But as I said, what really pumped me up, I'd go up to the board every so often, and I'm on the dean's list.
Yeah. Right.
And that was
And
fantastic.
I thought it was spectacular that you mentioned it, because you said, look, I can, you had this perception of yourself that said, hey, I have these struggles, right?
Yep.
So you didn't set these expectations that I'm going to be on that list, but all you did is do the work, and you kept showing up and doing the work, and then all of a sudden, there you go.
That's it.
Yeah, I think that's so important that they hear it. You got to keep going, right? And that's what I thought that came across today, and I can't thank you enough for it, because I think it's so important that they hear that from all these different walks. I oftentimes think that I'm sort of setting it up, that I'm only bringing in the alumni cadets that were, the best of the best cadets, right? The perfect cadets, right? And today you said, look, that's just not the case, all right?
If you want to talk about a setup, you told me or asked me, would you speak in March? And that was all of the conversation.
That's right.
And then I asked you, should I wear a tie or should I wear this shirt with Army Navy? And you said, wear the shirt with Army Navy.
Right.
That was the only setup you and I had. And it took me a while to start to get into the groove.
Yeah.
Because what do you tell them that they're going to pay attention and listen? I didn't want them to start counting flags.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or light bulbs. I wanted them to pay attention and maybe go out with something.
And that's the key takeaway. And I say to the boys, you may not get it today, but you're going to go back and look at this video potentially 5 years, 20 years, 40 years from now and say, oh, I remember that. That's Bob Boetticher. I remember what he said. It stuck with me, right? And that's the key. That's it's to plant that memory and allow them to, have that aha moment in the future.
Being gone 61 years, and when I walk around the campus, I still feel the same.
Yeah.
And that the memories are like they happened yesterday.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I'll sit on a bench there and go, I used to walk here, and Billy Erickson and I walked here, and
Right.
And then we did this, and at graduation I stood right there. Yeah,
I think that's having been here now for 17 years. It's not nearly 60, but you get this sense of how everything still feels very much the same.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's pretty special. Right.
Yeah, and then when you said that times change, they absolutely do.
Yeah.
We didn't have a fence around the academy. Right. It was an open academy.
Exactly.
We had guard duty.
Yeah.
So whichever 5 people had guard duty that day, you didn't go to class. And so we had a lot of things that they don't have here, but we didn't have cell phones because they weren't even invented
Of course.
yet. And if you wanted to talk to your parents, there's a payphone. And I was talking to one of the cadets today. I said, well, when we talk to our parents, there's a payphone right here. I said, you do know what a payphone is? He goes, isn't that a phone on the wall? So I said, no, it's a little house, has a door on it. And he goes, oh yeah, and you put coins in it. And I said,
Brilliant.
yeah. I said, we used to put in a quarter and make a collect call, and then hopefully that your parents were going to. But one of the funniest things that we had to write a letter every Monday. And the commandant had a clipboard, Boetticher, Jones,
Yeah.
Smith. Well, when I got busy, I had to do it or I was going to get in trouble. So I would take a regular piece of paper, fold it in half, put it in the envelope, and send it to my parents. And then my parents, waiting to get a letter from their son, opens it up. It's a blank piece of paper. And then they knew that I was busy, but I didn't want to get a demerit for not doing it. Every Monday, now they have cell phones and stuff, but we didn't have that. We had letters.
Right. I think that's fantastic. It makes me laugh because you didn't even think to just say, hi, Mom and Dad. You
No.
just folded it up and put it in the envelope.
And it was right after first mess.
Yeah,
So I went shooting back to my room, panicking because I forgot about it.
of course.
And then just going like this, and then I put it in. And then I walked away like, yeah. But if I was a parent today and that was my son, I wouldn't be real happy about that.
Oh, yeah.
I want to know what they're doing.
Right. Oh, no. You'd
You
read
know,
them
so
again.
for me, great. For my parents,
I know.
not so great.
And that was the key to it, right? Because that letter was all about making, of course, the administration here knew your parents wanted to hear from you, right?
Absolutely.
And it was special to get a letter. It was,
Right.
and everything about it, not just the letter itself, but your penmanship, the way your sentence structure. It was a statement, right? And in your case, it was a blank slate. Mom and Dad, I'm a blank slate.
Back there. And then when I would call them on the phone, they'll say, hey, you're getting a letter, it's blank.
That's great.
Everything is fine here. Oh, thank you, Bob.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's just beautiful. Listen, I want to give you a chance. First, thanks so much for doing this. I recognize the effect that it has on the boys, and you said to them, look, one of the things I regret was that I didn't start to pay it forward to the academy, to come back to the academy until a few years back when you joined the board.
Right.
You'd received your golden A, and I remember the phone call. I was chair at the time, and you said, hey, Barry, I'd really like to be more involved. And I thought, this is exactly what we need. It's somebody who's passionate about and understands the school, is passionate about wanting to take us to, take us forward. And you said to them, don't lose sight of that. You're going to get very busy, but there's a lot of things that you took from here, and you're going to want to be passionate about paying it back. Think about it often and early. I would thank you for that. I think it's important to hear it.
And what I miss, there were some great people in our class, and the addresses and phone numbers I have, they aren't any good.
Yeah.
And I would really like to see some of them, and I've been trying to run some of them down.
Yeah.
I know that they're alive. I just don't know where. And
We're working on that too. So we're going to be helpful to you.
so
The internet's very helpful now. We can start to get good information.
So I encourage alumni to come back to the alumni weekend.
Exactly.
And because you may just run into somebody that knows the person that you're looking for.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And it's great, the connectivity that people will have. Because, it's funny, people will wait 40, 50 years and think back and say, it really was the formative part of my life. Not necessarily college, it was the academy. And so they do start coming back for alumni weekend because of that, because they do want to see some of the people that, so they can reconnect. I love those alumni weekends because they're really valuable along those lines. I like seeing that. I remember when I was a parent, I really loved coming back for Alumni Weekend. I hadn't realized back then, Alumni Weekend was separate from other parent weekends.
Yes, it was.
And it was a closed weekend, so my son was here. And I didn't realize that the parents, my son was a junior before I realized that the parents weren't really invited to that weekend. And I remember thinking, God, that's a mistake, because I loved coming to that weekend and listening to parents talk about, or alumni talk to some of the parents that were here, the boys, about how formative the experience was. Because it made me as a parent realize how right I was in putting my son here, to be a member of this, to be a part of what these men have. It's so important that he gets that. And I love that Alumni Weekend, because you get, not only do you hear the stories, which some of them are not ready for prime time,
Right.
but what you do is you hear how important they were for those alumni, how it just made them the man that they are. And that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish here. So I think that's part of what we want to have happen in our virtue talks in the chapel and in these talks here today, so people can get a sense of it and no matter where they might be.
I thoroughly enjoy when I'm on campus talking to the cadets, and what's funny, they approach me.
Right.
They don't know who I am.
Right.
And they'll ask, "Did you go here?" And I
Yeah.
said, "Yeah." "Well, we heard back in the 60s, it was really cool." And I said, "It was cool." And that was one of the cadets, which I told you earlier. I was in the next room of the studio here, and I was just sitting there, and he walked in and said, "Are you speaking today?" And then he introduced himself and stuff. And then when we came down to the chapel for the talk, he was sitting at the piano.
Yeah.
And then when I came in, I just waved at him, and man, he jumped off of that stool, came flying over. I said, "Hey!"
That's great.
Yeah, it is. I thoroughly enjoy. And one cadet stopped me, and I was sitting in front. And anyway, he said, "So you've been here a long time?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "There was 2 cannons right here on each side of the flagpole. Well, when I was here, there was no cannons."
Right.
And I called my brother. I said, "Were there cannons in
No.
front?" He goes, "Nope." So I figured, well, that cadet didn't know what he was talking about. Shame on me, because those cannons did exist, and now they're being replaced.
1975.
Yeah, we had no idea.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, this podcast will air after those cannons return to our campus, so we can say something about them here. That's great. But you're right, and it's part of us oftentimes, wanting to return traditions that were meaningful. Right. Glad you brought it up, Bob. Thanks for doing this. Everything you do
Thank you, Barry.
makes us better.
Well,
Thank you.
it's my pleasure, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Fabulous. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.